you know that the biggest purveyor of lies, especially during war, is the government, and the second biggest purveyor of lies is the corporate news media. All right. So here is the New York Times. They said they created a virtual crime scene to investigate Syria's chemical attack, and then they got it wrong. They got it 100% wrong. They said Assad gassed his own people, which of course he didn't, because I knew it in real time. That's how bad the New York Times was. I knew they were wrong about this in real time because the reporting on the ground was opposite of what they said. They had to imagine a crime scene. The reporters I followed were actually there.
There's jokes too for that.
Oh, okay. Oh, let me get it. Is there? Really? Hang on. Oh, here it is. It says how we created a virtual crime scene. We already know how you did it. You did it with computers. A list of parroted notes from various powerful people you've supposed to be keeping an eye on rather than vice versa. That's how you did it. That's how you guys did it. Talk about burying the lead. The story is media outlet creates a crime scene. That's the story.
I know.
Not the graphics department. So just to let you know that the New York Times has been 1,000% wrong about war crimes, war, and before. On the regular, this isn't unusual for them to get it wrong. They get it wrong. They were wrong about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. They were wrong about Afghanistan. They're wrong about Libya. They're wrong about Syria, and they're wrong about Ukraine right now. And so when they tweet out, Ali Velshi says, this remarkable New York Times investigation using satellite imagery disproves the Russian claim that somehow Ukrainians themselves killed or planted the dead bodies discovered in Bucha. So this was, a lot of people are saying, is a false flag. And the evidence is pointing that way. And so he's relying on the New York Times, who got a satellite image from a fucking defense contract, a shady contractor. And of course, it's from the New York Times. So you can't trust the New York fucking Times.
He also doesn't. Yeah, he's not mentioning that they digitally recreated it.
He's
in
also
his tweet. He's calling it an investigation.
He's also not mentioning on the same day that the Pentagon said they couldn't confirm it.
Well, look at the thing.
Yeah. So what? It is remarkable.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is remarkable. So because he says this is remarkable. It's been a remarkable investigation by the New York Times that said that Russia committed a war crime. And then, of course, the Pentagon can't confirm it. And I just want to say, yes, it is remarkable, Ali Velshi, especially since just a few years ago, I saw every mainstream news outlet reporting on how digitally recreated crime scenes in criminal justice cases are absolutely unreliable as evidence and no longer allowed for that very reason. It leads me to remark.
Yeah, like they just reported on how you can't do that.
Yes, they did. So and they're doing it. And here's Max Blumenthal from the Gray Zone letting you know that these reports of war crimes committed by Russia and Bucha, they sound a lot like every other false flag bullshit. That's what he's saying. It sounds like it. It sounds like contains suspicious details suggesting a pattern of information manipulation aimed at triggering Western military intervention.
Why would you believe it's a conspiracy just because every war historically had a fake conspiracy to trigger the intervention?
Right. One of them, so now the New York Times is now smearing journalists who actually tell the truth about Ukraine. They've been doing it. This is their MO, right? So they got this guy, Benjamin Norton, who's been on the show. He says, yeah, they claimed that a coup sponsored by the United States government took place in Ukraine in 2014. So this is the New York Times saying that this guy claimed that a coup sponsored by the United States government took place in Ukraine in 2014. That is what happened. That's not a claim. That's a fact. And so which the New York Times has reported themselves. And so what the New York Times is doing here is trying to smear and discredit anti-war journalists so they can then shut him down on Twitter, Facebook, or wherever else they want. And then Twitter and Facebook will point to this New York Times article to say this guy spreads propaganda, even though he's not. Do you see what they're doing here? Because that's what they're doing. Okay. This is what they said. They said that journalist, this is the New York Times talking about that journalist, they said he first explained the conspiracy theory on RT, although it was later picked up by the Chinese state media and tweeted by accounts like Frontline. In a March interview with China's state broadcaster CCTV, trumpeted as an exclusive, Mr. Norton said the United States, not Russia, was to blame for Russia's invasion. You know who else says that? Noam Chomsky and every other scholar who looked into it, including Henry Kissinger and the former Secretary of Defense under George Bush. They all say it. It's not just Ben Norton, but this is how the New York Times makes anybody who tells the truth about war seem like a discredited conspiracy theorist. And here's what they tweeted out. They tweeted out, this was in the article. This was in the article by the New York Times trying to smear anti-war journalists. And they tweeted out this was the China State Media's a Twitter account. And they just put a red line through it. And this is a tweet of a video. Now, what the New York Times didn't do was make this clickable. Normally, you make it clickable so people could watch that video. They didn't. Why do you think the New York Times didn't make this clickable? Well, because so this is what he said. He said the Western governments promised this is not to expand eastward. The Soviet Union multiple times. So I don't know why I got all this in here. I don't need this. And so what they said was that he's pushing conspiracy theories on Ukraine. They're saying that the fact that a coup, which was instituted by the United States, the Maidan coup in 2014, where Victoria Nuland, we have a phone recording of her picking the next leader of Ukraine. The New York Times is saying that's all a conspiracy theory. Why? Because it's not. Because that's actually true, and they want to discredit anybody who tells you the truth about the war.
Have you heard the debunkings of that supposed phone call? Like, that she was just trying to, like, what did he say to me? I was just on my friend's show when they were yelling at me. That phone call is misunderstood, and she was actually talking to I guess the guy who was being put out of power to try to help out.
Yeah, it
was the most bullshit sounding thing. And then for the promises, that's my favorite, because like, no, they never got it in writing, so that's not a promise. The thing to not expand NATO, that is literally the debunking. Like, there was never a treaty signed that said they wouldn't do that. It was just the word of all of our emissaries to them just means nothing. That's all.
And so I just want to read this to you. It says, as the United States escalates its new Cold War on China and Russia, leading newspapers are dropping any pretense of fidelity to basic journalistic principles and enlisting as loyal foot soldiers in the information war. Those of us who are independent journalists who refuse to dutifully toe the U.S. regime's line are in their crosshairs. And that's what the point of this is. So now Twitter and Facebook can point to this article in the New York Times, and when they ban that independent journalist who's anti-war and say, that's why, look, he's spreading Russian disinformation. Here's another one. This is from Foreign Policy magazine. Russia is mimicking open source intelligence methods to discredit Bucha atrocities. So the same war crimes that they want to say Russia committed, it says, despite Russians' flimsy defense, some Westerners have nevertheless chosen to believe it. No, we haven't chosen to believe it. We're following where the facts lead.
There's a joke for that.
And oh, really? Where the fuck is it?
Sorry.
Where the fuck? Oh, it's on my phone. Oh, slide 14. Oh, okay. Oh, so, okay. Why is Russia's defense flimsy? Because there's physical evidence instead of the New York Times recreating it out of thin air with a graphics department. That's why it's flimsy, I guess.
You don't even have a digital recreation? That's not evidence.
So now they're saying that the evidence that Russia is presenting, saying that they didn't commit which you can't prove a negative, but they're trying to make them. And then they say Michael Tracy, who's just a guest on the show earlier in the show, who was over there in Poland and UK reporting on Ukraine. He says writer Michael Tracy tweeted to his 240,000 followers that the photos were war propaganda and cast doubt on their authenticity. So there's that. They're trashing independent journalists, discrediting them and smearing them as conspiracy theorists for pushing back against war propaganda, which is what they're supposed to do, which tells you that the people at Foreign Policy magazine are just dutiful stewards of the military-industrial complex, which is what they are. But they want to discredit people like Michael Tracy and me and anybody who's anti-war so they can get us censored. That's what this is about.
To play devil's advocate in this so-called evidence, I didn't hear one story about a P-tape.
That's right. So conspiracy. Watch how they smear Michael Tracy. They put him in the next paragraph with conspiracy site InfoWars ran breathless coverage touting information largely cribbed from those pro-Russian Telegram channels that exposed the truth of what happened in Bucha. So they're trying to make anybody who thinks anything different than what the government and the corporate media is telling us are a bunch of Alex Joneses.
Wait, isn't Alex Jones always breathless in every report?
And by the way, how many? You know, we're running out of conspiracies because they've all come true.
Yeah, right.
Russiagate, conspiracy theory, no evidence. The P dossier, completely made up. Trump in collusion with Putin, completely made up. Zero evidence.
They should have to have an Alex Jones jar that they put money in.
That's
whenever
right.
He was right.
How about the Wuhan? Where'd the virus start? In the Wuhan lab. Oh, remember that was crazy? Do masks work? Remember that was crazy? What about boosters? Remember that was crazy? Hey, are we funding gain of function? Remember that was crazy? So all the things they said were crazy conspiracy theories, they're running out of them because they're all turning out to be true. We're doing live stand-up shows in Cleveland, Columbus, Pittsburgh, Des Moines, Omaha, Kansas City, Las Vegas, all over the country. Go to jimmydorcomedy.com for a link for tickets. And single tickets now available at all venues. So if you tried to buy one before and you couldn't, single tickets are now available. Plus, while you're at jimmydorcomedy.com, why don't you become a premium member? Sign up to our mailing list so when they cancel us, we can still stay in touch.